Okay. Well, the only introductory remarks that I have are that I have been in absolute amazement of the good work of our staff this summer. Beginning in the spring, we've done this once before, but on through the summer, the staff in athletics has had a very heavy lift doing everything possible to keep student athletes safe, to get ready for all of the things that might possibly happen in this very, very fluid situation, to keep up on all kinds of new and different relief legislation coming out from the NCAA, and to help our incoming student athletes that have never even set a foot on campus, who are going to be new students for the first time, get ready and navigate all of the moving parts, which are really magnified this year. So I always feel in talking with my colleagues that our department is ahead of the game, and I really credit the really fantastic staff that we have working all the way from coaches to every member of the marketing staff, compliance staff, academics. Just really, really grateful to work with the people I get to work with. So my beginning and ending and in the midst remark is always thank you for being just really great professionals. So with that, I'm here today to kind of serve you and answer any questions that our staff or guests have, and have been actually looking forward to it all week. So the floor is all yours, and I'll do my best.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pauline. Okay, first question. Enrollment is on the top of everyone's mind. What can we do as an athletic staff beyond support student athletes to help the university address fall numbers?
Well, that's a great question, and it's a great question not only for this time right now that we're experiencing, but that is a question that a good athletic department should be asking every day of every year, because enrollment is a very important driver of everything that we do. The first thing is to be engaged on campus and with students. When our coaches and our staff are out being involved in other parts of campus, in student organizations, when we're seen across campus, interacting with people and meeting people and just really understanding all of the academic programs and moving parts, it demonstrates a great commitment just to our university community. And students want to see that. Prospective students and parents want to see that. We have a lot of opportunities, and we're going to continue to take advantage of them, to volunteer for things like the move-in day. And we've got our heavily muscled student athletes, and even the more slight ones, whether you're a runner or a lifter or whatever, we're helping move our students across campus into student housing. And I think continuing to be part of those things and part of the welcome is very important, because another thing that drives enrollment that we have to remember and not just think about in the summer prior to a new enrollment count is retention is enrollment. If we're not losing students as we're gaining new students, then enrollment is going to go up. So every day of the year, everything that we can do to make the student experience at Idaho State better, we're going to keep doing that. Things like enhancing the student section, if that's giving out pizza and fries, or if it's just greeting students on campus and making sure our student athletes understand the importance of engaging on campus as well, even though they're extremely busy. Those things make a very, very big difference in enrollment, as does our performance out in the world of competition. When we are able to perform well, that helps enrollment as well. So in addition to your training and your efforts on the court, being available and being engaged in campus life is something important that we can do.
Thanks, Pauline. Next question. Will we have football fans in Holt Arena? And if so, will we be at full capacity?
We will have football fans in Holt Arena. That is the plan. We actually have recently had a plan that we collaborated with the health department on. We collaborated with our medical team in athletics and with our university medical team. And it looks like Holt Arena will be between 50 and 60% capacity at a max, maybe a little below that, just depending on how things continue to open up. and how quickly that happens. So we know that we'll be able to accommodate all of our season ticket holders, and we have made the priority our faculty and staff and students, making sure that we have the normal number of seats allocated for those groups that we have in the past, even though general capacity will be a little bit smaller. So the rarest commodity is going to be the single game ticket. But we're going to be able to take care of our season ticket holders, our students, and our faculty and staff, and of course the families of our players who it's the highlight of their week, certainly, to come watch the game. So there'll be social distancing in place. Masks will be required in Holt Arena as a matter of having a crowd of 5,000 or 6,000 together. That's going to be very, very important. There'll be a lot of precautions taken in terms of the plexiglass and the line queuing that you'll see set up, and the number of doors that are open for entry. Holt Arena is going to go to a clear bag policy. It's been recommended for some time now, but this is an especially important year to be doing that, so that we're limiting the contact between those who are responsible for checking bags and things and the people who are coming in with bags, so that there's limited contact. And you'll see a lot more advanced online ordering system for concessions, so that the lines are not so long and people are not gathering in the concourse. Sideline space will be limited. We'll want to spread the team out. Instead of the smaller player box that we're used to, it'll probably be something like 10-yard line to 10-yard line, and there won't be any non-essential personnel on the sidelines. It'll be medical staff, players, coaches, and that's going to be just about it. So yes, there'll be football in Holt Arena. We're going to do everything that we can to have as many fans as we can, but I think to expect any more than about 50 to 60% capacity probably is not going to happen.
Okay, thanks, Pauline. We have a few questions related to that. The first one is, with limited seating capacity at sporting events, will student athletes get their allotted complimentary ticket?
Yes, we're looking at that right now. We may have to reduce that allotment a little bit at the beginning and see how it shakes out, because of course student athletes, some student athletes have 6 guests while other student athletes have 2. You know, they're going to use 8 between them. So we will probably start out with 2 guest tickets per player, and then if we're finding that we can't accommodate the immediate families of our players, then we'll need to increase that, because obviously we don't want to exclude those people. But we're going to have to be very conscientious and put that at a level where we know we can accommodate as many as are needed, but not more, because every reserves ticket is a ticket that we can't sell. We're going to work hard to get that number just right.
Great. Next question, also in this general category. What are you hearing from boosters and fans about this upcoming year? Are they nervous to watch our Bengals play in person? Do we need to do anything additional to reach out to our fans and boosters?
Yeah, I think we always have to do as much as we can to reach out to our fans and boosters. I can tell you that they're very excited. You know, the fund drive, the BAB fund drive, is already ahead in terms of collections. The number of people responding just to the initial mailing and not even waiting for the phone call to send in their contribution and make sure and secure their tickets is actually very, very impressive. So we're excited about that. We're working on it right now on a communications plan to email all of our season ticket holders and begin to give them an idea of what the proximity of their seats will be. We know that they'll be sitting together as households, but we also know that we have to have space around them. So it's going to be virtually impossible for people to have the exact same tickets that they're used to having every year, but we're working to get them very, very close. So we'll be doing some things online in terms of Facebook Live, some conversations with Jerry Miller, I'm sure, about how Holt Arena is going to look, a press release and some information like that. We're holding off a little bit to get those details out to the community because it's such a fluid situation. I think our Holt Arena plan has changed a couple of times already. And as we get a little bit closer to the season and those plans can stabilize, we'll be getting the word out. But the most important word to share right now is that we intend to play and we will have fans.
Okay. Thanks, Pauline. Next subject. We recently tested all of the student athletes in town for summer training, and all were negative. What are the plans for testing as we move forward?
Well, the plans for testing are, as we move forward, first and foremost, are going to be to ensure that every time we bring a student athlete onto campus from their home environment where they've been all during quarantine, that we're going to make sure and get an initial test after they've traveled here and so forth. So student athletes, we'll ask them to quarantine at home for about 10 days prior to departure. When they arrive here in Pocatello, they'll need 2 days in self-isolation. Then we'll complete a test. And as soon as that test comes back successfully negative, then that student athlete will be allowed to train. Aside from that, the additional testing that's continuing to evolve. But right now, at the recommendation of our medical team, that will happen if a student athlete is symptomatic, if they have been exposed to a known case, or if we get regulations and rules expressed that require testing at the Big Sky Conference level, or perhaps by some of our FBS opponents in football. So as those protocols come down, we'll certainly follow those. We don't know what they are yet. Other than that, we'll be testing student athletes that are symptomatic or have been exposed.
Thanks, Pauline. Next question. 2 Big Sky schools have announced they are cutting their tennis programs due to budget constraints. What are the is Idaho State considering this?
No, Idaho State is not considering cutting programs. And I think that that's just a philosophy that differs institution to institution, and it's a function of what the support is like. For us, that really has not been on the table for a number of reasons. We are at 15 NCAA sports. The minimum is 14. And we don't want to be quite that close. We would want to cut a sport and be right at the minimum. I don't think that would be prudent. Furthermore, if you're looking at tennis, for an example, you have to understand we've got men's tennis, which is an equivalency sport. So we're bringing 10 students into the institution, and none of them are on a full ride scholarship. And so I think that it might not even be productive in terms of the university as a whole, and we need to think one university, one team, to eliminate 10 students when we're really only giving them a little bit of support in terms of a scholarship. We want those students at our institution. So we have chosen to cut in other ways in terms of some equipment budgets, some travel budgets. We've amended our schedules. We've eliminated a lot of fluff from our budgets, and to this point, that has been adequate to be able to save people and to be able to save programs. We've just hired a new men's tennis coach. I think I saw that he's on the call today, and our tennis coaches have new contracts, and we're moving forward, and we're very, very excited about those programs. So that is not in the plan at Idaho State.
Thanks, Pauline. We have a couple of questions about this next subject. This involves the Californian decision. So on Monday, the California Attorney General announced that the Idaho HB 500 or H500 violates California's anti-discrimination laws. And as such, no California state funds may be used to fund to travel to Idaho. Does that mean that home games we have scheduled with California state schools won't happen?
No, I don't expect that we will lose those games in this year. We are one of 11 or 12 states that are on this list where the state of California does not fund travel to our institutions or our states. So, but we see that schools in California, state schools, are going to Texas to play. They're going to other states that are on that list, and they're accomplishing that by finding sources that don't include state money to fund those outings. That, our conference partners are obligated to play our conference schedule. I think that all of the operations of making that happen will come out in our favor, and we will host those games. I don't expect that they won't happen in this coming year because they're obligations. I think where we could expect to see an impact would be in the future, especially at a time right now when budgets at all state institutions are pretty tight, and that those fundraised funds and other sources of revenue are already covering a lot of other things. As we know here, it may become more difficult to schedule non-con games with California state schools if they're not going to be able to find adequate funding to make those trips happen. But I think this year we're going to be able to work out the mechanism to get all of those games to happen.
Okay, thanks, Pauline. For those of us, this came up at Coffee with Kevin, but for those of us who were not there, can you please give us an update on Davis Field and the progress going on there?
I at least once a week, take a walk on the beautiful path along Red Hill to look at Davis Field, and I'm always blown away by the progress from week to week. So if you haven't done that, go and do it. It looks great. The project is moving along. It is on track to meet budget. It is on track to meet the November completion date. There have only been a couple of weird things that have sprung up in the construction that have been minor challenges or changes. There was a deep concrete curb underneath the track that went all the way around the perimeter that nobody knew was there. We had to dig that out and haul that away, which we hadn't expected. And then there were a few utility lines that were just in a little bit different place than we expected, and some small adjustments had to be made. And that's virtually it. But the big lights went up, which really made it feel like a venue is starting to take shape there, and the walls are going in. And I know that our soccer staff, Debs and Sam down, if they're in their offices at Holta or at Davis Field, they're bouncing around. They're feeling that construction, and it's moving along quickly, and we couldn't be more excited.
Next question, Pauline. Will the Big Sky Conference Championships for basketball and track and field be moved out of Idaho due to the NCAA's reaction to the transgender bill?
Well, I don't know. That certainly is a possibility. So for those of you, I'm sure you've been following this, but early in August, the NCAA Governance Committee will meet to consider whether or not to enact a similar ban in Idaho as was done in North Carolina a couple of years ago, and not allow NCAA championships to happen in Idaho, which would mean that the first and second round of March Madness would not happen here in Boise in March. I think if the NCAA takes that approach, then the Big Sky Conference would have to consider whether or not it wanted to follow suit and not allow championships to take place in Idaho. And I don't know how that would play out. So I think we have some time to bide and wait and see what happens in November. Or I'm sorry, on August 4th. By November, we'll know.
Thanks, Pauline. Next question. In a news article a couple of weeks ago, you shared that ISU will save $200,000 on new Big Sky conference scheduling in many sports. Within that article, it shared that ISU athletics ran a deficit of $750,000 plus. Is this a typical practice within the athletic department, or will there be more cuts within the department to not run into another deficit?
Well, in the past, when there were some reserves to work with, really the budget for athletics included between a $600,000 and a $900,000 deficit every year. So over the past couple of years, we've been really working on the revenue side of things. We've been working on the budget side of things so that our budgeted expenses really meet our revenues. We were fortunate that the students supported a student fee increase to help make that happen. And we had some gains in our football attendance that first year that really helped the budget. And we've been able to present pre-COVID a balanced budget. So that's where we have to be. That's our obligation to the university, and that's our responsibility. And so we will always be working toward that balanced budget. As we look at this year, I think we did save, or we will save, projected in the neighborhood of 200,000 through some of the adjustments that we made prior. We made a significant number of cuts prior to the Big Sky changing schedules. And then the schedule changes and the sacrifices that different programs and teams are making across the board, whether it's championships or shortened season or one less official for soccer and other sports taking that approach, will save a significant amount, and we will need it to cover a lot of the COVID-related expenses. But absolutely, going forward, deficit budgeting is not a sound practice that we want to have be the norm. So we'll be always diligent about our budgets. Our programs were amazing about offering cuts. Our coaches are still, bouncing into my office daily saying, we could save a little bit here if we combined these opponents while we're in this location. Football is dramatically changing the way that we travel, and it won't be the best scenario for on the competitive side of things, but it's going to be the responsible scenario to keep people in with positions and to keep student athletes with scholarships and opportunities. And that's the way that we're going to continue to move forward.
And while we're on the subject of budget cuts, Pauline, could you talk to us about how enrollment might affect budget cuts specifically for athletics if it's down in the fall?
Well, enrollment drives the budget of every department on our campus. So when enrollment decreases, we have to tighten our belts and we have to spend less money because the more students that are enrolled, the better our budget looks, and the fewer students that are enrolled, the less revenue that's available. So we'll try to address that through fundraising if that's the situation that we're in, through responsible spending. And but to the earlier point, the best thing that athletics can do, not only for our department, but for our entire university, because remember, I can't say it enough, it's one university, one team. We have an important obligation to the institution to help drive enrollment and help drive fundraising. But if enrollment is down, we can expect more cuts so that we are doing our part to keep the institutional deficit as low as it can possibly be.
Okay. Thanks, Pauline. Next question. In the wake of the unrest surrounding race relations in America, how will you and how can our department support our diverse family of Bengal student athletes?
Sure, that's a very important question. As for me, the most important thing that I can do is, and that all of us can do, is you have to start with yourself. Times like this are a really important time to just reflect back on your own experiences, your relationships with other people, and think about how have I impacted this problem over time? How have I impacted the people around me? How often have I taken the time to really reflect and to really listen and have conversations on this topic that can sometimes be uncomfortable, but that should always be constructive? So I think thinking about my own experience and recognizing all of the ways that we can do better in athletics and diversity and inclusion. We welcome a pretty diverse population as Idaho State University goes in through the door of athletics. And are we giving them the best support we can and the best opportunities? And are we learning as much from them as we should be in engaging our whole athletics community together in important conversations about race and about relationships and about the world and the university that we want to look like? We need to see that ideal in our mind and then take steps to work towards it. As a department, I think that there have already been some really great things that have happened. Our student athletes, completely of their own initiative, organized the Unity March, and it was very, very successful. And I was very proud of them, and I was really honored to be a part of it. looking back in Pocatello, I've personally never been part of something like that before. And it was a powerful experience for me just to be there and listen to people and take some time to reflect on the way that things should be everywhere. And I think Pocatello and our student athletes did a really great job. Yesterday afternoon, the Big Sky Conference hosted a panel. It was called A Conversation for All. And they took time to field questions and talk about issues of race and talk about things that we can do better and talk about why we haven't done better in the past in general in race relations. And it was really insightful and it was well received. And I think people got comfortable talking and listening about the topic. I think another initiative that's really important is, teaching and encouraging and facilitating our students and ourselves to make sure that we're part of the political process and part of the processes that are in place in our country that can feasibly bring about meaningful change the most quickly. And if you think about the percentage of people and the percentage of probably college students in particular who don't take the opportunity to vote, that's an important way to bring about change in our country and in our communities. So the NCAA, I think, did a great thing in mandating that election day will be a non-CARA activity day across the NCAA. And so we will not only be obviously complying with that in not having required activity that day, but surrounding that, we need to make sure that our student athletes understand what they need to do to have an absentee ballot counted, what they need to do to get registered to vote. And beyond that, to use their platform in athletics to go out and help the rest of the student body do the same thing. Get registered to vote, get familiar with the issues and the candidates that represent, the way that you want to be represented, and go forward and be part of the process. So I think all of those things contribute to bringing about change, but the important thing is having these conversations on our team, looking at ourselves and our own experience, and really taking a hard look and asking yourself what you can do better, and then continuing to be active with things like the Unity March and the initiative to get our students out to vote. I think we can do all of those things, and I know that in our town hall meeting we're actually going to have with student athletes in July on this topic, I'm going to listen to them because they have great ideas and great energy. I think we can learn a lot from them.
Awesome. Thanks, Pauline. That seems to wrap up the questions that I have on deck here. I'll just turn it back over to you now and let you send a closing goodbye to everybody. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time with us today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jenny, for moderating, and everybody for being here. I think that our role here in athletics is really important. And I think that we have a staff and a group of people here gathered on this call and in our department who understand it better than ever before. There were a couple of questions in this call about what can we do to make things better, whether it's with regard to diversity and inclusion, or whether it's with regard to how can we increase enrollment, how can we communicate better with our boosters and fans. I love that these questions ask, how can we do better at these things? How can we help our institution? And that's a sign of, I think, what our Bengal Roar means and what the people in our department are about. We're one university, one team, and I couldn't be more excited. I feel like our teams are looking great for this season. The kids have been so excited to get back on campus and begin training. They've communicated a lot with their coaches and their teammates. And I think more than ever, everyone here really, really values this extremely special opportunity that we have to compete, to take part in higher education, to have access to higher education while doing so. And I feel this is a year, while it's going to have its challenges, every single person is going to make the very most out of the opportunity. And that feels great. It feels exciting. And I'm just, I'm just profoundly grateful for all of you and the work that you do and the very, very good job that you're doing for Bengal athletics and Idaho State. So thank you.